The Canadian Bitcoiners podcast is just two guys and maybe a guest or two discussing Bitcoin, Bitcoin equities, and the related macroeconomic space. It's not meant to be financial advice, so please, if you're doing any investing after listening to our program, do your own research, do your own due diligence, and understand that any money you invest can be lost. The show is meant for entertainment purposes only, and we hope you enjoy the program.
5710. Okay, notables. What do you got? There's so many good notables this week. We got to pick like the top 5, 6. I don't know. How many do you want to do?
Okay, let's do Chicago, CBP, right?
Sure.
It's Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson. Let's go, Brandon.
He's been out there just killing it.
He's wonderful. He announced that Chicago too is looking at the reparations because remember we talked about California. So Chicago is doing a $500,000 study to look into this, and it's a task.
Is that
force.
less or more than he spent on hair and makeup during the campaign?
Oh, it's far more. Was it more?
Okay, 30 was the number. Okay. Yeah, I knew it was less. I just wanted to give you a hard time.
Far more. So this is a task force which is being created, and they're going to be studying the impact of slavery and racism on Black Chicagoans or whatever that.
Chicagoans? Chicago.
That's it. Yeah, people living in Chicago. Chicagoites, I'm going to call them.
Sure.
Anyways, they're going to be researching policies that go back hundreds of years, in fact, a couple hundred years, at a time when slavery would have a negative impact on the Black community.
Jesus Christ.
And the task force will create some sort of plan to remedy the situation, including maybe offering some money as a result. So for those wondering too, yeah, the city of Chicago, they're heavily in debt. In fact, their debt they have is so serious. It's the second worst debt burden in the United States for any large city. So the city owes way more money compared to the amount of revenues coming in. But I guess this $500,000 study was desperately needed. Good for them. We'll see what transpires from this. Chicago is turning into a gold mine, and I love this guy, Brandon Johnson. Let's go, Brandon. Hello,
Brandon. Mayor Johnson. If you ever want to come on the show and defend this policy, we'll do it. We've said before. There's a guest that's done some Bitcoin shows, not ours, but a guest or a person in the macro space who charges $200 for hair and makeup for all appearances. That's cheaper than what you would charge, Mayor
We got to
Johnson.
name that.
No, we can't. We can't because I'll definitely get a DM. We're not so big that we would have a problem, but we are definitely big enough that they would find out that we named and shamed. That's for sure. That's for sure.
Fucking prick.
I know. It's funny. Anyway, yeah, great stuff. Chicago has some of the worst educational metrics in the world, per capita. There's a great story I saw about Chicago the other day that the school board there wants to increase the cost per year per student to something like 18 or 19,000, even though there's entire schools where there's not a single kid competent in math or English. I mean,
math, is that why? Because that stuff, obviously, it's.
Is it what?
Western math?
Oh,
have you heard about that? That apparently,
of course. Yeah. I went to teachers college. Okay, I remember I went to teachers college in the States. Okay, and I remember the first time I ever really had like I'm becoming radicalized moment was when someone told me that certain kids of certain ethnicities and certain kind of cultural backgrounds shouldn't be made to quote unquote be on time because it's a Western construct, the idea of a schedule. And I just kept on thinking, like, respecting someone's time is not anything. It has nothing to do with the Western society. It's just like a thing that you do when you care that you're, a respectable person. You respect someone's time by being on time. That was the beginning of my, steady radicalization. It's landed me here where now I'm insulting the mayor of Chicago. It's on a weekly basis at this point over some stupid thing that he said or done. Also, why does it take $500K? I mean, there's one of these fucking studies every goddamn month. So just ask someone else what they found. Like, why do we have to ask this guy to spend another $500K? This is like the dumbest shit in the world. Everyone has been doing this. Just go to Gavin. What's Gavin say? Doesn't Gavin have the fucking data on this already? Why do we got to find out from this guy? Or Lightfoot? Did Lori? Are we really saying that Lori Lightfoot never did anything like this while she was in office? Of course she fucking did. They already must have this stuff.
Now the question is, was 30,000 spent?
I gotta find out
when she was in power in terms of.
I sure fucking hope not.
I don't want to go. I just want to know how much was spent for.
I don't know. What's it cost for a Beetlejuice costume? Let's see. Push for reparations in Chicago, 2021, 2023.
Those are outdated, right? 2023 is so far away.
Len, has there been,
last year?
God, I can already tell the judge is going to love this section when you and me are in the courtroom trying to defend ourselves.
I'm defending it. Month. A year, a lot could happen. A child could be born. There's so much, a house could be built.
Yeah, but like in terms of reparations for slavery, Len, what new developments have there been since 2021?
Obviously, I'm not doing the study. I'm not. Do I look like somebody that's knows this shit? I don't.
I'm not touching that.
Right?
Let's move on. Go to the next story. We've already gotten ourselves in enough trouble here.
No. I'm for this stuff. So let's talk about what's going on in California. We got a CBP, right?
So CBP.
CBP, right? So the duties of a Secret Service agent, Joey. Like, do you know what the duties of a Secret Service agent are? There's 2 duties, by the way.
These days,
just in general, like the main duties they have.
Pursuing people who use Venmo for transactions greater than $600. Don't report them. Yeah. Okay.
That's not Secret Service. That's
not Secret Service. Making sure that Joe Biden gets off the stage okay, holding his hand. That's probably also, that's got to be Secret Service, right?
Yeah, so that's somewhat because they're trying to safeguard the president, the vice president, and a whole bunch of other people.
Okay. Former
presidents as well also get Secret Service protection.
Nice.
Also candidates, certain candidates.
Some.
RFK Jr.'s not getting So, but anyways, they also do other things like criminal investigation, financial crime investigation.
Really?
But, yeah, that's part of one of their mandates, but I'm not going to get into that. I want to talk about the protection of these important figures, right? So they're out there, they should be able to figure out if something's going wrong. But anyways, one Secret Service agent was out there in California because Biden had an event with former President Barack Obama. Yeah. And they raised a whole bunch of money.
Oh, and Kimmel Biden, God, that was great. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry,
I didn't know. I don't know what was Kimmel there.
It's a video, another video of Biden like just freezing on stage. And then Karine Jean-Pierre getting on the press secretary podium and saying that all these videos of Biden freezing all over the place are quote unquote cheap fakes.
That's right. AI. See, these Bitcoin miners out there, they're linking up with these AI companies. And
they're going to shut them
down. we found a linkage here. So,
oh no.
Anyways, this poor Secret Service agent out there was just there to do his job to protect the president and former president as well. So you got to figure these guys, they would, know when shit's going to happen, to diffuse the situation, protect themselves and others, the whole 9 yards, right? But not over there. So in a small town just outside of Anaheim, the police department over there said that officers responded to a call about a possible robbery that took place in a residential community. Upon arrival, the officers discovered that the victim was a Secret Service agent and his bag was stolen at gunpoint. And you gotta figure, like a Secret Service agent, how the fuck does this guy get robbed?
By a common thug? Oh my god.
What the fuck? So we got to a point that the people that are out there to protect the president are getting fucking robbed. This is fucking bad.
California. I love that. How did that guy get on the detail? That guy's like the cream of the crop when it comes to Secret Service agents. What's the guy who's like, he's on duty the day, like the turkey pardoning in the White House front yard or like the Easter egg hunt in the White House front yard. What's that guy? Like that guy might get ripped off by a school kid, like he might get ripped off by a junkie or something.
He's just there to ensure that there's only one person entering the porta potty at a time. That's his job. And he does that well.
When I used to go,
people haven't got in at the same time.
When I was going to Brock, there was this guy at Big Bucks Bar, which I think is called Barracuda now. I can't remember the name, but there was this guy in there that used to dispense soap for you. and saying "Smack That" by Akon, except he would say, "You need some soap, smack that. You need some soap." I feel like this guy, the cut of his jib might make him actually a more competent Secret Service agent than the guy who got robbed in California. Do you have thoughts on this? The club soap dispenser guy who like invariably is dealing with drunken, belligerent people all the time. Like as a professional choice, he's done this. He goes to the places where the drinks per capita are above 4.5 per person by like 11 o'clock and only rising as the night goes on. People don't want to go to the washroom. They don't want to wash their hands and they don't want to use the soap. But that guy's in there forcing the soap on people. This guy might be more cut out for the job of Secret Service agent than the guy who got robbed in California.
You have to ask yourself how he looks in a dark suit and sunglasses. If he doesn't look the part, he's not going to get hired. So that's part of it. And you know, the Secret Service, right?
That might be the biggest part of it, Len. Honestly, it's definitely not like martial arts or self-defense. Does this guy have a gun? Like, aren't they always supposed to carry guns?
Apparently, he was robbed and his bag was stolen. You know what? It just goes to show you, California, it's going to shit as a result. You gotta love that state. And let's keep moving on. Let's talk about Seattle, because there was a job posting done by the Seattle Police Department, and in it they're accepting applications from DACA recipients. So what is DACA? D-A-C-A.
That's the Dreamers, right?
It is.
It's Dreamers. Yeah. Okay.
It is. So
yeah.
I'll give you, like, for people that are unaware, it's a form of temporary relief from deportation known as deferred action
Relief
to
from
undocumented
deportation.
youth who came to the United States before the age of 16, who reside in the U.S. since June 2007 and met no other requirements. So basically, a parent brought their child here and they were young at the time they came here illegally, and they stay here and they're undocumented. That's another way to say they're young people that are now young adults that are undocumented. Well, as per the Seattle website, the police department, they're looking for applicants who hold United States citizenship or have legal permanent residency, or they're part of the Deferred Action Childhood Arrivals, DACA recipients. So they're not giving badges to people potentially that have no fucking status. And they're the people that are going to be protecting the people, the general population, right? This is what we've come to. There's not enough people to apply for these jobs. They're not desirable enough for anybody else that are citizens or permanent residents that came here legally or were born here. And they're opening it up to DACA recipients. Wow, like what the hell's going on?
I don't know what to think about this. To your point, I think the big issue might be that the job is just no longer desirable in a place like Seattle, Chicago, New York to some extent. New York's police department still has a sort of great legacy reputation. So maybe they're not having this problem yet, but they probably will at some point. But Seattle, Len, why would you ever want to be a Seattle cop? Like, you're dealing with policies that we know don't work for things like drugs and violence and theft. Those guys had that. Remember they put up that fake country or something, and what did they call it? It's like the Independence Zone or something like that. Remember that? What was that thing called? Someone in the chat will know. I can't remember what they called it. It was like shortly after the George Floyd riots, maybe. I can't remember.
Homeless there must be out of this world. There must be a ton of them in Seattle.
I'm relying on someone from the chat to tell me what the name of that zone was in Seattle they came up with. God, I can't remember. But anyway, a total nightmare city. Like, I would never want to live anywhere near there. And also, their football team's not that good. They just signed Geno Smith and traded for Sam Howell. You can't support that place. Here's a question for you, okay? Should there be restrictions on who can become a police officer? These are the same sorts of people, Len, that will send you a social worker when someone is like wielding a knife during a mental episode. They're telling you that the bar is so low for cops now too. Like, I don't get, who is this benefiting, really? Do the Dreamers even want these jobs? This is the other question. I know it's open to Dreamers only or whatever, but like, do they even?
No, not open. Jobs? It's open to everybody, including.
Sorry, Dreamers. Yeah. So, like, do they even want the jobs? I guess we'll see. We'll find out how many Dreamers they get in the force. I suppose, but I don't think they want the jobs either, right?
if it pays well, you know, think about it. You're undocumented. You're part of this DACA recipient stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think you're gonna be first choice when it comes to high paying jobs. So maybe this might be something that they like. There may be a pension, sick days, shit like that come along with it. So maybe there's something here that, you know, it is appealing to people of that status. But do you want people of that status there to be having badges? Like theoretically they're undocumented.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
I don't know. It's a touchy subject. I'm not sure. I don't know what the nature of these sorts of things, you know, should be, is what data they have to support any of this stuff. Who knows, right? Also, how long does it take for a new citizen, documented, illegal or otherwise, to really assimilate to the culture, right? Does it take 20 years? Does a kid who was born here or there, I should say, I guess, like, does that kid view himself as American? Probably.
I would say, yeah, probably.
Yeah,
if the majority of your life was spent,
in the United States. Right. So maybe it's not that big a deal. I just think that the bigger problem is, like, why not just say to that same group, like, maybe instead of allowing them to get jobs, why not say to the same group, here's a path to citizenship, and, you know, naturalize them, or whatever that term is. Isn't that the more kind of humane is the wrong word, but the better thing to do? No? Yes? They're good enough for the job with the police, but not good enough for other similarly paying important jobs in society. That's the other thing I don't really get. You can't be just one, right? Unless you're truly just, like, thinking that the police force is like a meat grinder and you just need bodies. Then maybe you do it like that. Then I would use the term, you know, inhumane. But yeah,
maybe they go to Chicago and work on a study, because there's $500,000 is being thrown. So maybe there's an opportunity there to make some money.
Jesus Christ. Fitzsimmons in the chat there. Chaz Autonomous Zone was the name of it. Yeah, they started their own little mini country there with, like, spray painted signs. It looked like something out of Fallout 4, where you just find a bunch of raiders and a rare item. Honestly, is ridiculous. Completely ridiculous.
So let's go to Ontario now. I think it's a good time to move on to the notable side in North. This past week in Ontario, we had some extremely, I don't want to say, we had some warm weather, right?
Yeah.
And as somebody in our chat put it, it's nice weather, right? But either way, it was what they're calling a heat dome that just took hold of Ontario. That's what it was called, a fucking heat dome. That thing is just brutal. It's like, anyways, it caused indoor temperatures in schools to shoot up to above 25 Celsius or around 77 Fahrenheit. And not all classrooms, keep playing that, Joey. Not all classrooms were using AC. So some had to resort to, this is getting bad, because opening windows and using fans. Like, heaven forbid. So good thing we have advocates out there to help us, right? Because the Ontario Green Party, their deputy leader, issued a news release after this heat dome and outlining the problems, saying that a lack of access to cool classrooms is dangerous to both staff and students by hindering the well-being and learning and creating what they call extreme risks for those with pre-existing health conditions. Man, oh man, it was warm, but I remember growing up, we didn't have AC. I was in the third floor of a school with no AC. We just had open the windows, no fans,
and turn the lights off, right? You'd have the lights off.
That's it. Turn the lights off, right? It was hot, but it was, approaching summer. And what are you gonna do? But whatever. I don't know, man. I played tennis midday in a heat dome. I ran in the heat dome. I didn't fucking expire. It was warm, but it wasn't crazy. Human beings were able to deal with it. In fact, there's more people that die every year more to cold than does to heat.
Yes.
So
here's the fix, okay? Get the freezies out of the fridge in the staff room, dole them out to the kids, shut the lights off. Here's the sort of unspoken thing about this is that they're not doing fuck all the last month of school anyway. So, am I supposed to think that this is causing problems for learning? It's not. Am I supposed to think that the kids who have pre-existing conditions are going to die in 26-degree heat, 25-degree heat? They're not. I don't buy it. And, to your point, I don't want to sound like an old man because I'm, not, and I'm a little younger than you, but I remember the same thing. We never had AC in school. Well, what kind of school has AC? You want to build character? Go to school with no air conditioning. Leave the lights off. open the door, open the windows, put the fan on, just, take it easy, get a drink. What are we talking about here? Are we serious? And also, if it's that big a deal, then fucking buy an air conditioner for the school. Put a window AC in every room. It'll probably cost $5,000. Be done with it. As if it's this big a deal. The biggest conspiracy theory here that makes the most sense to me is that teachers want school to end earlier. And they look at the sort of the gains they've made in terms of PTO over the last 10 years, additional days off for holidays, additional days off for March breaks and fall breaks and whatnot. And they're thinking, shit, if I can rip, 3 years in a row where there's stories in major newspapers and say like, yeah, kids should not be in school past June 15th instead of June 29th or whatever. They always run to the end of the month. That's a big win for teachers in the union. And I think they're going to try and take advantage of that. You can write that one down. I think they're going to say school should end 2 weeks earlier. Global warming is getting too bad. The Ford government won't buy us air conditioners. Everyone who buys this is like wholesale stupid. Honestly, it's just one thing after another. I hate teachers more than I hate most professions. Not all teachers, of course, but like 80% of them. And to me, it's just going to be like, Glenn, you think if the fucking liquor store had the AC out, that these teachers wouldn't still be showing up there fucking grabbing High Noons and Smirnoff Mickeys for their pool parties? Of course they fucking would be. The same way that these fucking morons were at the liquor store every day buying booze during the pandemic, even though going to school was too dangerous. Fuck these people. Fuck these people. They deliver the worst results anywhere in the fucking country. All these schools are underperforming. All they care about is cultural nonsense. They don't teach math. They don't teach science. They don't teach English. I don't know, 2 weeks earlier. Sure, fuck it. Let them fall further behind. They'll ask for another, $10,000 a year in raises, the next negotiation round. Paint Doug Ford is the problem. The radio ads will be insufferable. And they'll still ask to be revered when you see them at dinner parties. Fuck them. Fuck them. That's what I think.
And very good topic. Let's talk about a stunning report that came out from Food Banks Canada. Now, StatsCan, they had a report, and they were saying in that report from StatsCan, poverty rate in Canada was around 10%. So 1 out of every 10 Canadians are living in poverty, according to StatsCan. Not great, but if you look at the Food Banks Canada, their survey, it's getting worse because their numbers don't agree with StatsCan. Food Banks Canada says 25% of Canadians are experiencing poverty standard of living. 25%. Mm-hmm. And they concluded this. They come to this conclusion with the rationale that folks cannot afford 2 or more household essentials. And the list of what they deem to be household essentials is quite lengthy, but
we've never talked about that list before, right? It's a list of not just foods, but like activities and kind of like situations you may find yourself in if you are living in poverty. I had never seen this list before, but I think we're talking about the same list.
Yeah. And I cherry-picked a few things from it. So one is paying bills on time. Another one is adequate footwear, because, the winter, you need something to cover yourself when it gets cold and slushy and so forth. Another one is affordability of transportation. So these are just 3 of the many things on that list. And so they're saying people are struggling to meet at least 2 of these. And as a result, they are living in poverty. 25% of Canadians are living in poverty. So if you look at this new way of measuring if they're in poverty or not, that's an additional 6 million Canadians that are living in poverty than previously thought. And if you look at this even further, they're saying 30% of Canadians aged 18 to 30 are living in poverty. 30%. But 44.5% are single parents. 42% are renters, are experiencing poverty level standard of living. So if you're a renter, almost 50% chance that you meet this qualification of living in poverty. These are the things that you're looking at show you that the economy is not running as strong as people think it is, or at least what they're trying to paint it to be. And it's pretty sad. People that are living in poverty will need more help. They'll need more social services. And it's going to make the tax dollars stretch even further, because they're going to have to pay, instead of paying for roads or infrastructure or whatever the fuck that has to be paid for, it has to be paid for services for this group of people, which is growing by the day. Mm-hmm. Because they need help. It's not like in Canada you can get by living in a fucking tent, maybe for a few months, but not 12 months a year. So yeah, I'll leave it at that, Joey.
So, okay, I have something to add to this. And I want to note, is this good data? Yeah, it is. Okay, let me see if this makes sense here. The one thing I want to add, okay, just before I get into this, the thing about the poverty list is that the list is pretty good, but it's incomplete. And I think what you don't see there is like what I'm going to call, because I just don't have a better term for it, spiritual poverty. How many people are living and don't ever have problems with any of that stuff, but can't do anything but live, for 2 hours, 3 hours at home after they eat a substandard in terms of caloric balance and nutritional value meal, go to sleep. Like I always say, I'm not going to make the joke again because I feel like I make it every week and I don't want to joke about this too much. And then have to go to work again the next day, right? Like that, like when people say poverty, they're really talking about finances and sort of situational stuff. How about like your spiritual, wealth? How happy are you as an individual? How close to, fulfillment are you as an individual? I think it's funny to me that, and this is, I think, very telling. If I look across the landscape of education and employment and sort of corporate American interests and priorities, I see a lot of stuff about fulfillment, enrichment, and sort of intangible things that contribute, or at least, are allegedly contributing to my well-being. But then when I look at the poverty numbers and the number of people living below the poverty line, I don't see anything about that. I'm told constantly that these things are some of the most important things that anyone can do for themselves or for others. But then when I think about how they measure whether or not someone is living in a, poverty situation, they're not there. I don't see them at all. They're not there because everyone is experiencing these things now in a way that they weren't before. And I think, Len, in the next 50 years or whatever, you're going to see a lot of people talking for the first time about how spiritual poverty was a precursor to financial poverty in a lot of cases. People lost hope and stopped doing things that were keeping them out of financial poverty because they just said, fuck it. I'm not going to worry about this too much anymore. Things are not getting better. I'm not going to find a wife. I'm not going to find a house. My friends are, too busy for me now and I'm too busy for them. Just barely getting by. This is an important thing that people are going to be talking about soon. If I look too, Len, at stuff like, caloric intake, the data is a little bit unclear, but I think what you're seeing now, and we'll see again shortly, my doctor actually noted this to me the other day, that stuff like dairy has basically been removed from the Canadian nutritional guide. Dairy's maybe the most expensive thing to buy, sort of per, pound for pound in the store, whether it's milk, cheese, or otherwise. That's no longer in the nutritional guide. I think that a lot of people are going to start to say, well, you actually don't need this many calories per day. We have sort of an obesity epidemic in places like America and Canada. We should limit or start to focus on getting less calories every day. All that stuff is really just ways of saying that people are entering into poverty situations, I think. And Stefan has made this point many times, and I agree with it by and large, although I don't know the details enough to say that I agree with everything. There's a lot of ways that you can mask a bad situation as it gets worse. And these measuring sticks are one of them. Poverty, what it means to live and the cost of living, stuff like that, stuff we've talked about a bunch. And I think that you're going to see, like I said, in the next, few decades, that it was really the sort of spiritual side of this that we knew about. And a lot of people understood sort of implicitly, but couldn't articulate. And that I think governments knew about early and just didn't do anything about or tried to hide. And it really led people down a path in a lot of ways, and more often than not, where they became financially poverty stricken as well. Sad situation, but it's clearly happening everywhere. And this idea that it's this small a number, I think, is just it's obviously not true.
And Another thing is how many people are working second jobs or some side gig or whatever, and that's tapping into their recreation time. So it's making their quality of life it's reducing that because they're spending more of their waking hours just trying to earn money to make ends meet. And it's part of broken money, right? When money's broken, this is part of it.
Yeah.
So this is the last topic. Well, since we've talked about poverty, let's just end on that, because there is a displaced family in Ontario, and these people, they decided to try to make things work during the summer months. They're thinking outside the box, because last February, due to quote unquote unsafe conditions at a rental home, they forced this family to leave. And also with the high cost of housing, they decided to do something very different. And it's a family of 5, and it includes 3 young kids. Very sad story. But what they decided to do was rent a campground at Beaver Mead Campground. This is near or inside Peterborough, Ontario.
Mhm.
They've been there since May 10th. And so not squatting. They paid their bills. They've rented this area just like anybody else, any other person that is going to use this campground. They paid for it. And well, they got sideswiped when the conversation owners, and these are the folks that are running it, they decided to issue a trespassing notice to the family on June 18th. So these guys are homeless. They decided to rent a place at a campground. It's there. Anybody can rent it, but they decided, no, you guys can't because it's trespassing. In the letter that was given to the family, they said the Beaver Mead Campground is not a housing option for you, and you will not be permitted to make consecutive bookings in the future. How bullshit is that? And I took a look at the pricing over here. It's actually not too bad. If you wanted to get a 150-day seasonal campsite with 50 amp service, it would cost you $3,700. It's not bad for 150 days. So
not at all.
I can understand why they decided to do this, because the weather's getting better. They could just pitch a tent, and then they're going to be able to at least survive, especially with 3 young kids and stuff to do. But man, what the fuck is this? They rented this place lawfully. They're not squatting, and they fucking can't stay there. Like, this is bullshit. This is becoming this is the end from what I can see. They were closer to the end, much closer to the end than any other time, and it's fucking sad.
What are they supposed to do?
You're talking about the people that run this conservation area?
I mean,
or
everybody. Like, what are all the parties involved supposed to do here, right? The conservation area is meant to be a place where families camp and stuff, and it's like a place where everyone gets to share in some of the beauty, natural beauty of the province and the country. I kind of get why they don't want families living there in perpetuity. Fine. I may not agree, but I can at least see their point. What's the family supposed to do? The family's, making a decision that makes sense for them in the short to medium term, at least, while they're without a home. They're paying to be there. So the business of the campsite there is benefiting. And then like both, the campsite decides that they don't want them there anymore. Fine. But I mean, I think they don't want them there because they don't want it to become the norm, right? They don't want everyone to just be living in a campground for quote unquote cheap. I mean, it's cheap compared to housing standards, but obviously there's a price to pay other places on that, on that SWOT analysis. I don't know. I don't know what to think about this. I don't have a strong feeling either way. I do feel bad for the family, because one thing I appreciate when I see stories like this is like, yeah, this guy and his wife are like thinking about how they can make things bearable for their kids and for each other. And they come up with this idea. Yeah, we'll just rent a campsite. We have enough, financial backing to do this. Let's do it. And we'll see if things get better. And now they're basically going to be out on the street, right? That's the sort of logical next step, I guess.
And it's heartbreaking when you watch the story. The kids, they're young,
Yeah.
right? So they're the victims in all this. They have no way to, they're following their parents wherever they take them.
Yeah, agreed.
And man, like, could you imagine instability at home? Now they don't have instability anywhere. Like, it's a really sad situation. But you know what? There's a lot more people that are going to be in this situation that are without homes. That's why tent cities are becoming much more problematic for urban areas. And, you know,
terrible.
like I said,
it's all terrible. Like this is a terrible story. Yeah, it's a terrible story.
Yeah. So we'll end it on that. That's
you want let's do one more here. I'm gonna read you something from my Twitter from earlier that I found I think was hilarious. The Federal Reserve Fed Research Twitter account put out a story today, put out an article, federalreserve.gov, official, okay. Higher inflation can lead to greater efficiency. It all has to do with the price dispersion that inflation generates, which might motivate some consumers to search for the lowest prices, increasing competition among sellers. If you think still that the Federal Reserve is concerned about bringing inflation back down to 2%, you got bad news. They are not too concerned about it. They think it leads to greater efficiencies.
So if you believe them, there would be deflation.
Yeah.
Greater efficiencies are the result of that. Prices should then come down. And as a result, there would be deflation. Now, until we get into a situation where there is deflation, they're full of shit. I think it's very difficult to achieve deflationary. Because we're going to be a deflationary environment.
Yeah.
They're expanding the money supply the way they are right now.
I
guess it's possible, but it's hard for me to fathom.
I want to see Jerome Powell answer a question on that at the next FOMC meeting. You know, why are you guys worried about inflation? You put out a research piece that says inflation's good for everybody. Why? You know, why don't we want to be more efficient?
Did it cost the Chicago taxpayers $500,000 to do this? I'd love to know.
It was written by someone named B. Johnson. I don't know who that was, but I had to find out more about this author.
Yeah, apparently, he had a very nice face, and he was phenomenal.
Really good blend around the cheekbones there. Yeah. Anyway, okay. That's it, everybody. Good night, go Oilers, I guess. I'm not that big a hockey fan, but I'll be watching tonight. And Len will see you back Wednesday for some talk with the Wilson boys. Mining, very important. Until then, take care of yourselves.
Don't be a cock.
I never have the button ready. Good night.
Are you a fan of the old school NHL 94 game on the Genesis or SNES? Why not check out my show, the NHL 94 Podcast? From tournaments and tactics to the people who make up this community. Check it out wherever you listen to podcasts or find it on YouTube.